everyone. So in my last video, I talked about expectancy violation theory. So today I wanted to come back and talk to you a little bit more about another communication theory, symbolic convergence, which touches on the aspects of dramatizing messages, creating group fantasies, and increasing group cohesion. So this theory was first presented by Ernest Borman, who was a communication professor at the University of Minnesota, and he makes many references to Robert Bale's work, who was a Harvard social psychologist. So Borman drew from Bale's work and conducted a study further researching newly formed groups and examined their leadership emergence, decision-making, norms, cohesiveness, and the number of other features that come with group life. So the basis of this theory is that two or more private symbol worlds incline toward each other and come more closely together and even overlap, which increases group consciousness and group cohesiveness. So there are a couple of aspects that come with symbolic convergence, two of them being dramatizing messages and fantasy chain reactions. So dramatizing messages are imaginative language by a group member describing past, future, or outside events, and are creative interpretations of there and then. So it's a over embellishment of something that did or may happen in the future. So there are a couple of things that have to happen in order for something to be considered a dramatizing message. It must paint a picture or call to mind an image, and it has to happen to or within the group in the past or may happen in the future. So then we move on to fantasy chain reactions. According to Borman's theory, fantasies are dramatizing messages that are enthusiastically embraced by the whole group. Now, it's very difficult for this to actually occur, but when it does occur, that's when we go into a fantasy chain, which is a symbolic explosion of enthusiastic agreement among group members in response to the dramatized message. So there are four elements that come with the fantasy chain reaction. You have the fantasy, which is the creative and imaginative shared interpretation of events that fulfills a group's psychological or rhetorical needs. You have your fantasy theme, which is the content of the fantasy that is chained out within a group. Then you have your symbolic cue, which is an agreed upon trigger that sets off group members to respond as they did when they first shared the fantasy. And then you have the fantasy type, which is a cluster of related fantasy themes and a greater abstraction of incorporating several concrete fantasy themes. So now we'll move on to another portion of symbolic convergence, which is rhetorical vision. So rhetorical vision is a composite drama that catches up large groups of people into a common symbolic reality. So sometimes fantasies that are formed in small groups are embedded into public speeches or presentations, and that starts to spread on mass media, causing what Borman calls a rhetorical community. So a lot like fantasy chain reactions, rhetorical vision have four features. So we'll begin with characters. So are there people to root for? Are there people to despise? Just like any story. We have plot lines. So do the characters act in a way that is consistent with the rhetorical vision? You have the scene. How do descriptions of time and place increase the drama's impact? And you have the sanctioning agent. Who or what legitimizes the rhetorical vision? So to conclude this portion of symbolic convergence, we'll talk a little bit about the critique. So Borman suggested that symbolic convergence is both interpretive and objective, but it's difficult to decide how this is possible because with each theory, there are portions of objective and interpretive theories that it doesn't match with. Such as with objective theories, it does not predict what will happen. And with the interpretive theory, it doesn't clarify people's values. So there's a little bit of a quick summary on what symbolic convergence is and the idea that creating group fantasies and picturing what something may happen or how something had happened can increase group cohesion.